Monte Thornton Young is an American avant-garde composer, musician, and artist generally recognized as the first minimalist composer. His works are cited as notable examples of post-war experimental and contemporary music, and were initially inspired by sources such as Indian classical music, serialism, and jazz. Young's early work was tied to New York's downtown music and Fluxus art scenes, and was often heavily conceptual, calling into question the nature and definition of music. Young is perhaps best known for his pioneering work in Western drone music, prominently explored in the 1960s with the experimental music collective Theatre of Eternal Music, which also included figures such as Tony Conrad, John Cale, and Terry Riley. He has engaged in musical and multimedia collaborations with a wide range of artists, most frequently the visual artist Marian Zazzila, with whom he developed the Dream House sound and light installation. His evolving composition, The Well-Tuned Piano, first conceived in 1964, has been characterized as one of the great achievements of 20th-century music by The Guardian. Despite having released a very small quantity of recorded output throughout his career, Vulture described him as the most influential living composer today. The Observer read that his work has had an utterly profound effect on the last half-century of music. Biography. Young was born in a log cabin in Bern, Idaho, where as a child he would be formatively influenced by the continuous droning sounds of the environment, such as blowing wind and electrical transformers. Young and his family moved several times in childhood, as his father searched for work before settling in Los Angeles, California. He was raised as a member of The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He graduated from John Marshall High School and studied at Los Angeles City College. In the jazz milieu of Los Angeles, Young played with notable musicians including Ornette Coleman, Don Cherry, and Billy Higgins. He undertook further studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he received a BA in 1958, then at the University of California, Berkeley, from 1958 to 1960. In 1959 he attended the summer courses at Darmstadt under Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, and in 1960 relocated to New York in order to study electronic music with Richard Maxfield at the New School for Social Research. His compositions during this period were influenced by John Webern, Gregorian chant, Indian classical music, Gagakus, and Indonesian gamelan music. A number of Young's early works use the 12-tone technique, which he studied under Leonard Stein at Los Angeles City College. Young also studied composition with Robert Stevenson at UCLA and with Seymour Schifrin at UC Berkeley. In 1958, he developed the Trio for Strings, originally scored for violin, viola, and cello, which would presage his work in preceding years. The Trio for Strings has been described as an origin point for minimalism. Quote, "When Young visited Darmstadt in 1959, he encountered the music and writings of John Cage. There he also met Cage's collaborator, pianist David Tudor, who subsequently gave premieres of some of Young's works. At Tudor's suggestion, Young engaged in a correspondence with Cage. Within a few months Young was presenting some of Cage's music on the West Coast. In turn, Cage and Tudor included some of Young's works in performances throughout the US and Europe. By this time Young had taken a turn toward the conceptual, using principles of indeterminacy in his compositions and incorporating non-traditional sounds, noises, and actions. When Young moved to New York in 1960, he had already established a reputation as an enfant terrible of the avant-garde. He initially developed an artistic relationship with Fluxus founder George Maciunas and other members of the nascent movement. Yoko Ono, for example, hosted a series of concerts curated by Young at her loft, and absorbed, it seems, his often parodic and politically charged aesthetic. Young's works of the time, scrawled as short haiku-like texts, though conceptual and extreme, were not meant to be merely provocative but, rather, dreamlike. His compositions 1960 includes a number of unusual actions. Some of them are unperformable, but each deliberately examines a certain presupposition about the nature of music and art and carries ideas to an extreme. One instructs, draw a straight line and follow it. Another instructs the performer to build a fire. Another states that this piece is a little whirlpool out in the middle of the ocean. Another says the performer should release a butterfly into the room. Yet another challenges the performer to push a piano through a wall. Composition 1960 No. 7 proved especially pertinent to his future endeavors. It consisted of A, B, and F hash, a perfect fifth, and the instruction, to be held for a long time. In 1962 Young wrote the second dream of the high-tension line step-down transformer, one of the four dreams of China. The piece is based on four pitches, which he later gave as the frequency ratios 3/6, 3/5, 3/2, 2/4, and limits as to which may be combined with any other. Most of his pieces after this point are based on select pitches, played continuously, and a group of long-held pitches to be improvised upon. For the four dreams of China, Young began to plan Dream House, a light and sound installation conceived as a work that would be played continuously and ultimately exist as a living organism with a life and tradition of its own, where musicians would live and create music 24 hours a day. He formed the music collective Theatre of Eternal Music to realize Dream House and other pieces. The group initially included calligrapher and light artist Marion Zazula, Angus MacLeese, and Billy Name. In 1964 the ensemble comprised Young and Zazula, John Cale and Tony Conrad, and sometimes Terry Riley. Since 1966 the group has seen many permutations and has included Garrett List, John Hassel, Alex D., and many others, including members of the 60s groups. Young and Zazula's first continuous electronic sound environment was created in the loft on Church Street, NYC in September 1966 with sine wave generators and light sources designed to produce a continuous installation of floating sculptures and color sources, and a series of slides entitled Ornamental Light Years Tracery. This Dream House environment was maintained almost continuously from September 1966 to January 1970, being turned off only to listen to other music and to study the contrast between extended periods in it and periods of silence. Young and Zazula worked, sang and lived in it and studied the effects on themselves and visitors. Performances were often extreme in length, conceived by Young as having no beginning and no end, existing before and after any particular performance. In the daily lives, too, Young and Zazula practiced an extended sleep-waking schedule, with days longer than 24 hours. 1970–present. Beginning in 1970, interests in Asian classical music and a wish to be able to find the intervals he had been using in his work led Young to pursue studies with Pandit Pranna. Fellow students included Zazula, composers Terry Riley, Michael Harrison, and Yoshi Wada, philosophers Henry Flint and Catherine Christa Henricks, and many others. Young considers the well-tuned piano, a permuting composition of themes and improvisations for just-in-tune solo piano, to be his masterpiece. Young gave the world premiere of the well-tuned piano in Rome in 1960. 1974, 10 years after the creation of the piece. Previously, Young had presented it as a recorded work. In 1975, Young premiered it in New York with 11 live performances during the months of April and May. As of October 25, 1981, the date of the Gramavision recording of the well-tuned piano, Young had performed the piece 55 times. In 1987, Young performed the piece again as part of a larger concert series that included many more of his works. This performance, on May 10, 1987, was videotaped and released on DVD in 2000 on Young's label, Just Dreams. Performances have exceeded 6 hours in length, and so far have only been documented several times. It is strongly influenced by mathematical composition as well as Hindustani classical music practice. Since the 1970s, Young and Zazila have realized a long series of semi-permanent dream house installations, which combine Young's just-in-tuned sine waves in elaborate, symmetrical configurations and Zazila's quasi-calligraphic light sculptures. In July 1970, a model short-term dream house was displayed to the public at Gallery Heine Friedrich in Munich, Germany. Later, model dream house environments were presented in various locations of Europe and the United States. In 1974, the two released Dream House 78 feet 17. From January through April 19, 2009, Dream House was installed in the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York as part of the Third Mind exhibition. A Dream House installation exists today at the Mellor Foundation on 275 Church Street, New York, above the couple's loft, and is open to the public. In 2002, Young, along with Marian Zazila and senior disciple Young Hee-choi, founded the Just Raga Ensemble. This ensemble, performing Indian classical music of the Karana Gharana, merges the traditions of Western and Hindustani classical music, with Young applying his own compositional approach to traditional raga performance, form, and technique. Influences. Young's first musical influence came in early childhood in Bern. He relates that, "The very first sound that I recall hearing was the sound of wind blowing under the eaves and around the log extensions at the corners of the log cabin. Continuous sounds, human-made as well as natural, fascinated him as a child." He described himself as fascinated from a young age by droning sounds, such as the sound of the wind blowing, the 60 cycle per second drone step-down transformers on telephone poles, the Tanpura drone, and the alap of Indian classical music. Certain static aspects of serialism, as in the Webern slow movement of the symphony Opus 21, and Japanese gagakus, which has sustained tones in it in the instruments such as the show. The four pitches he later named the dream chord, on which he based many of his mature works, came from his early age appreciation of the continuous sound made by the telephone poles in Bern. Jazz is one of his main influences, and until 1956 he planned to devote his career to it. At first, Lee Konitz and Warren Marsh influenced his alto saxophone playing style, and later John Coltrane shaped Young's use of the soprano saxophone. Jazz was, together with Indian music, an important influence on the use of improvisation in his works after 1962. Monte Young discovered Indian music in 1957 on the campus of UCLA. He cites Ali Akbar Khan and Chatur Lal as particularly significant. The discovery of the tambura, which he learned to play with Pandit Prannath, was a decisive influence in his interest in long sustained sounds. Young also acknowledges the influence of Japanese music, especially gagakus, and pygmy music. Monte Young Young discovered classical music rather late, thanks to his teachers at university. He cites Bécquut, Bartók, Igor Stravinsky, Perotin, Leon and Claude Debussy and Organim musical style as important influences. But what made the biggest impact on his compositions was the serialism of Arnold Schoenberg and Anton Webern. Young was also keen to pursue his musical endeavors with the help of psychedelics. Cannabis, LSD and peyote played an important part in Young's life from mid-1950s onwards, when he was introduced to them by Terry Jennings and Billy Higgins. He said that everybody knew and worked with was very much into drugs as a creative tool as well as a consciousness-expanding tool. This was the case with the musicians of the Theatre of Eternal Music, with whom he got high for every concert. The whole group. He considers that the cannabis experience helped him open up to where he went with trio for strings, though sometimes it proved a disadvantage when performing anything which required keeping track of the number of elapsed bars. He commented on the subject, "These tools can be used to your advantage if you're a master of ... If used wisely, the correct tool for the correct job, they can play an important role. It allows you to go within yourself and focus on certain frequency relationships and memory relationships in a very, very interesting way." Legacy. Young has been described as the most influential living composer today. His use of long tones and exceptionally high volume has been extremely influential with Young's associates: Tony Conrad, John Hassell, Rhys Chatham, Michael Harrison, Henry Flint, Ben Neal, Charles Curtis, and Catherine Christa Hennox. It has also been notably influential on John Cale's contribution to the Velvet Underground sound. Cale has been quoted as saying, "La Monte was, perhaps, the best part of my education and my introduction to musical discipline." Brian Eno was similarly influenced by Young's work, calling him the daddy of us all. Quote, in 1981, Eno referred to X for Henry Flint by saying, "It really is a cornerstone of everything I've done since." He had himself performed the piece as a student in 1960. Andy Warhol attended the 1962 premiere of the static composition by Monte Young called Trio for Strings and subsequently created his famous series of static films, including Kiss, Eat, and Sleep. Uwe Husseline cites filmmaker Jonas Mekas, who accompanied Warhol to the trio premiere, and claims that Warhol's static films were directly inspired by the performance. In 1963, Warhol, Young, and Walter de Maria briefly formulated a musical group, which included lyrics written by Jasper Johns. Lou Reed's 1975 album Metal Machine Music states, "Drone Cogners and harmonic possibilities vis-a-vis Lamont Young's Dream Music." Among its specifications, the album Dream Weapon, an evening of contemporary sitar music by the band Spaceman 3, is influenced by Lamont Young's concept of dream music, evidenced by their inclusion of his notes on the jacket. Bowie Electric dedicated the song Postscript on the 1996 album Beat to Young and Riley. Drone rock pioneer Dylan Carlson has stated Young's work as being a major influence to him. Young's students include senior disciple Young Hee Choi, as well as Michael Harrison, Arnold Dreyblatt, and Daniel James Wolfe. Discography. Inside the Dream Syndicate, Volume 1, Day of Niagara with John Cale, Tony Conrad, Marian Zazzila, and Angus MacLeish. 31 769 1026 to 10:49 p.m. Munich. From Map of 49 stream, the two systems of 11 sets of galactic intervals ornamental light years tracery, 23:8. 64 2 hours 50 minutes and 45 seconds to 3:11 a.m. The Volga Delta from studies in the bowed disk. Dream House 78 feet 17 inches. Monte Young, Marian Zazzila, The Theatre of Eternal Music. The well-tuned piano 81x25. 9012C, 9:35 to 10:52 p.m. NYC. The melodic version of the second dream of the high-tension line step-down transformer from the Four Dreams of China. Just Stomp and Live at the Kitchen. The Tambouras of Pandit Prannath, 1999. The well-tuned piano in the Magenta Lights. Compilations. Small pieces for string quartet. Saraband for any instruments. 89/8C, 1:45 to 1:52 a.m. Parasankhor from Poem for Tables, Chairs and Benches, etc. Excerpt 31I69C, 121733122433 p.m. NYC. From Drift Study 31I69C, 121733124958 p.m. NYC. From Map of 49 Stream the two systems of 11 sets of galactic intervals. 566 for Henry Flint. List of works. Scherzo in A minor, piano. Rondo in D minor, piano. Unad, dance band. A jazz ensemble. Wind quintet. Variations, string quartet. Young's Blues. Fugue in D minor, violin, viola, cello. Opus 4, brass, percussion. 5 small pieces for string quartet on Remembering Ennead 1, a wisp 2, a null 3, a leaf 4, a twig 5, a tooth, canon any 2 instruments. Fugue in A minor, any 4 instruments. Fugue in C minor, organ or harpsichord. Fugue in Eb minor, brass or other instruments. Fugue in F minor, 2 pianos. Prelude in F minor, piano. Variations for alto, flute, bassoon, harp and string trio. For brass, brass octet. For guitar, guitar. Trio for strings, violin, viola, cello. Study, violin, viola. Saraband, keyboard, brass octet, string quartet, orchestra, others. Studies on 2 and 3, piano, vision, piano, 2 brass, recorder, 4 bassoons, violin, viola, cello, contrabass and making use of a random number book. Live friction sounds, jazz drone improvisations. Poem for chairs, tables, benches, etc. Chairs, tables, benches and unspecified sound sources. 2 sounds, are recorded friction sounds. Compositions 1960 #S2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 13, 15. Performance pieces. Piano pieces for David Tudor #S1, 2, 3. Performance pieces. Invisible Poem sent to Terry Jennings. Performance pieces. Piano pieces for Terry Riley #S1, 2. Performance pieces. Target for Jasper Johns. Piano. Arabic numeral to H, F, piano, a gong or ensembles of at least 45 instruments of the same timbre, or combinations of the above, or orchestra. Compositions 1961 #S1 to 29. Performance pieces. Young's Dorian Blues in BB. Young's Dorian Blues in G. Young's Aeolian Blues in BB. Death Chant, male voices, Carolina large bells. Response to Henry Flint work such that no one knows what's going on. Sopranino saxophone, vocal drones, various instruments. Realizations include BB Dorian Blues, the 5th, 4th piece, Abiba, Ebdeed, the Overday, Early Tuesday Morning Blues, and Sunday Morning Blues. Poem on Denna's birthday. Unspecified instruments. The 4 Dreams of China, including the first Dream of China, the first Blossom of Spring, the first Dream of the High-Tension Line Step-Down Transformer, the second Dream of the High-Tension Line Step-Down Transformer, tunable, sustaining instruments of like timbre in multiples of 4. Studies in the bow disc gong, pre-tortoise dream music, soprano saxophone, vocal drone, violin, viola, sine waves, the tortoise, his dreams and journeys, voices, various instruments, sine waves. Realizations include Prelude to the tortoise droning selected pitches from the holy numbers for the two black tigers, the green tiger and the hermit, the tortoise recalling the drone of the holy numbers as they were revealed in the dreams of the whirlwind and the obsidian gong and illuminated by the sawmill, the green sawtooth ocelot and the high-tension line step-down transformer. The well-tuned piano. Each realization is a separately titled and independent composition. Over 60 realizations to date. World premiere, Rome 1974. American premiere, New York 1975. Sunday morning dreams, tunable sustaining instruments and/or sine waves. Composition 1965, $50. Performance piece. Map of 49 stream, the two systems of 11 sets of galactic intervals, ornamental light years, tracery, voices, various instruments, sine waves, bowed mortar relays, soundtracks for Andy Warhol films, Eat, Sleep, Kiss, Haircut, Tape, the two systems of 11 categories, theory work. Chords from the tortoise, his dreams and journeys, sine waves. Realizations include intervals and triads from Map of 49 stream, the two systems of 11 sets of galactic intervals, ornamental light years, tracery, sound environment. Robert C. Skull Commission, sine waves. Klaus and Patty Oldenburg Commission, sine waves. Betty Freeman Commission, sound and light box and amp, sound environment. Drift Studies, sine waves, for guitar, for guitar prelude and postlude, one or more guitars. The subsequent dreams of China, tunable, sustaining instruments of like timbre in multiples of 8. The Gilbert B. Silverman Commission to write, in 10 words, a complete history of Fluxus, including philosophy, attitudes, influences, purposes. Chords from the well-tuned piano, sound environments, includes the opening chord, the magic opening chord, trio for strings, versions for string quartet, string orchestra, and violin, viola, cello, bass, trio for strings, trio basso version, viola, cello, bass, trio for strings, sextet version, trio for strings, string octet version, 2 violins, 2 violas, 2 cellos, 2 basses, trio for strings, postlude from the subsequent dreams of China, bowed strings, the melodic versions of the 4 dreams of China, including the first dream of China, the first blossom of spring, the first dream of the high-tension line step-down transformer, the second dream of the high-tension line step-down transformer, tunable, sustaining instruments of like timbre in multiples of 4, the melodic versions of the subsequent dreams of China, including the high-tension line step-down transformer's second dream of the first blossom of spring, tunable, sustaining instruments of like timbre, in multiples of 8, the big dream, sound environment. Orchestral dreams, orchestra, the big dream symmetries S1 to 6, sound environments, the symmetries in prime time from 144 to 112 with 119, including the close position symmetry, the symmetry modeled on BDS number 1, the symmetry modeled on BDS number 4, the symmetry modeled on BDS number 7, the romantic symmetry, the romantic symmetry, the great romantic symmetry, sound environments, the lower map of the 11th division in the romantic symmetry in prime time from 144 to 112 with 119, unspecified instruments and sound environment. The prime-time twins, including the prime-time twins in the ranges 144 to 112, 72 to 56 and 38 to 28, including the special primes 1 and 2. The prime-time twins in the ranges 576 to 448, 288 to 224, 144 to 112, 72 to 56, 36 to 28, with the range limits 576, 448, 288, 224, 144, 56 and 28. Sound environments. Kronos Kristaya String Quartet. The Young Primetime Twins, including the Young Primetime Twins in the ranges 2304 to 1792, 1152 to 896, 576 to 448, 288 to 224, 144 to 112, 72 to 56, 36 to 28, including or excluding the range limits 2304, 1792, 1152, 576, 448, 288, 224, 56 and 28. The Young Primetime Twins in the ranges 2304 to 1792, 1152 to 896, 576 to 448, 288 to 224, 144 to 112, 72 to 56, 36 to 28, 18 to 14, including or excluding the range limits 2304, 1792, 1152, 576, 448, 288, 224, 56, 28 and 18, and including the special Young Prime Twins straddling the range limits 1152, 72 and 18. The Young Primetime Twins in the ranges 1152 to 896, 576 to 448, 288 to 224, 144 to 112, 72 to 56, 36 to 28, including or excluding the range limits 1152, 576, 448, 288, 224, 56 and 28, with one of the inclusory optional basses. 7, 8, 14 to 8, 18, 14, 8, 18 hours, 16 minutes and 14 seconds, 18, 16, 14 to 8, 9, 7 to 4, or the empty bass. Sound environments. The symmetries in prime time from 288 to 224 with 279, 261 and 2x119 with one of the inclusory optional basses. 7, 8, 14 to 8, 18, 14, 8, 18 hours, 16 minutes and 14 seconds, 18, 16, 14 to 8, 9, 7 to 4, or the empty bass, including the symmetries in prime time when centered above and below the lowest term primes in the range 288 to 224 with the addition of 279 and 261 in which the half of the symmetric division mapped above and including 288 consists of the powers of 2 multiplied by the primes within the ranges of 144 to 128, 72 to 64 and 36 to 32, which are symmetrical to those primes in lowest terms in the half of the symmetric division mapped below and including 224, within the ranges 126 to 112, 63 to 56 and 31.5 to 28 with the addition of 119 and with one of the inclusory optional basses. 7, 8, 14 to 8, 18, 14, 8, 18 hours, 16 minutes and 14 seconds, 18, 16, 14 to 8, 9, 7 to 4, or the empty bass sound environments. An 92x19 version for zeitgeist, alto saxophone, vibraphone, piano, bass, drums, including 92-12-22 two-part harmony and the 1992-12 and backup riffs, just Charles and amp, cello in the romantic chord, cello, pre-recorded cello drones and light design, Raga Ensemble, Villampicar set in Raga Ensemble, voices, various instruments, tambura drone, trio for strings, just intonation version, 2 cellos, 2 violins, 2 violas.